And hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd, and this is a pre recorded video. Again, we have back the infamous, notorious Noel Benoist, former NSA whistleblower, member of Magic 12, Majestic 12. If you don't know what that is, we'll briefly touch it. We'll address it more in later videos, or go check out the videos that we've already done. We just completed the three-part process on the Kennedy brothers, John, Robert, and Edward. Today's video is about Martin Luther King, the Martin Luther King story according to Noel Benoist. We will also be recording the video for Jackie O today and possibly Marilyn Monroe, and get into a little MK Ultra possibly. So we'll see how that goes. Noel is the co-author of the 200-Year Plan with the late FBI whistleblower Ted Gunderson. So if you haven't read that book, go out and get it. There are two editions. We will ask Noel, he's backstage right now, which edition that you should try to procure. Last I looked, the book was about $200 a pop. So it's a very rare book, and it is pricey if you can find one. According to Noel, they, MJ12, took the book and kind of rewrote it and republished it. But I'll let him dive into the minutia of what that actually looked like. It looks like he's ready to go backstage. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on the infamous, notorious Noel Benoist. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Oh, I'm always doing good as long as I wake up breathing. I'm good to go. So
Absolutely.
been doing a little few things around the place, trying to repair storm damage from weaponized weather and everything. Of course, I think you got hit with some of that too with your flooding, huh?
Actually, I had a pipe break behind my refrigerator.
Oh,
This house is about 20 plus years old PVC pipe. And when I pushed the refrigerator back into the wall, the outlet for the interior water dispenser, that pipe broke. So it broke in the wall, and it was just like somebody turned a water hose on. So I had to run outside, cut a water hose. First we were using buckets, and then I cut a water hose and stuck it on there and got the water to run outside. So my whole first floor did not quite get flooded, but the most of it did. So that's where I'm at.
See, that's where we're going. All that old stuff is getting weaponized. It's come back at you.
Yeah, well, I survived the tornado in May and the hurricane in July, and then I had a flood in October. Yeah, October. Man, been a year for sure. All right, we're going to dive into Martin Luther King. So let's just give a little synopsis for everybody who's going to catch this video and hasn't seen any of your previous videos.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about how you got into the NSA, Majestic 12, and what years you were there, which encompasses the major Martin Luther King activity, and then just take off from there.
Okay, and before I do that, I'll clarify a little bit on the book for the people that were listening to that part. The first book is a black book, and it's the one that was sabotaged big time. And they were supposed to have a picture of me and Ted Gunderson on the back as a memorial to him. And they got a picture of me with Senator Kyle, and Senator Kyle signed it big and bold. And the black book has actually sold, one of them sold for something like $3,000 as a collector's item. And then the second publication basically got wiped out. And matter of fact, 2 days after the first one was printed, they ran me off the road with an 18-wheel truck, hoping for an unexplained highway fatality. And the book that is prayerfully not too messed with so far is the ebook that I put on Kindle ebooks. And Kindle was going to charged $29.95 for it. And I said, I won't give it to you. And they said, how much do you want? And I told them, you got to sell it for under $10 or I won't give it to you. And so that everybody knows, actually, the book is all of my information and evidence, basically investigated and validated by Hall of Fame FBI National Chief Special Investigator Ted Gunderson. And I did the writing, but Ted approved everything I wrote as it was something that he could stand behind as 100% accurate. And then both Ted and I signed off on it. And when Ted did that, they called him in for a mandatory physical, and his immunization shots weren't immunizations, it was drugs. They drugged him up, and there were people that visited him in the hospital, and he told them, they're trying to kill me, get me out of here. And they were afraid to do anything. I told them, you should have told me. I'd have gone and got him, because I'm not afraid of those guys in the slightest. And so that's kind of how we got to where we were and where we are now. I gave Ted top billing on the book because, number one, he laid down his career and his life and joined me in the fight for truth and justice. So both Ted and I was seat 13 of Deep State. I'd be seat number 1 today, but I couldn't do the stuff that they were doing to get there. So Ted and I both laid down positions of some pretty heavy duty power and career in order to fulfill our oath to protect the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And MJ-12 is domestic. They're inside the U.S. Most of the members are citizens of the United States, with some outside members, etc., cooperating in other countries and all that. And so that's why I put the book out there, and I had them sell it for less than $10 because they said, well, you won't make any money. I said, well, if I'm not making any money, then there's only one reason for the book to be out there, and that's because it's the truth. So I'm not getting rich. I'm not getting famous. There is only one singular motive that stands in the publication of that book, and that is to get the truth to the people and fulfill my oath, and in memory of my partner who partnered with me on it, Ted Gunderson. Great guy. And we got another guy that actually partnered with us, and he was on Unsolved Mysteries. He's the guy where they found his body in the Maryland dump. So these people are dangerous people. And basically, I've had God's protection. I would have gone and protected Ted and got him out if people would have told me. So that's the stuff that we're covering all the way through Martin Luther King and everything, because the wrongs they go all the way back to like the Illuminati and the Knights Templar, and they go back to the founding of America. These people have their ancestry going all the way back to some of the people who were with George Washington. Unfortunately, there have been people all along some who wanted to build a country where we could worship God, be free, etc., and some who wanted to use that to control the world eventually. And it's the people who want to control the world that we're fighting, because Ted and I believe in government by the people, not by a few people or one person. Government by the people and for the people, not for a few people or one person. And then of the people means that the people, if you want your government, you have got to get involved. You have got to spend the time to find out what your legislators are doing. And don't just believe somebody who says something wild, because just like Robert Kennedy we talked about on the last go round, and they claimed, or Ted Kennedy rather, they claimed he knew Mary Jo was in the car and they'd had an accident. Fact of the matter is, had he known that, they would have prosecuted him for manslaughter. Why did he not try to get her out of there? He was not prosecuted because they had more than enough evidence that, in fact, he could not remember even going to the party. And that is a side effect of PCP. If you get a very low amount of PCP will overdose a person. And when a person comes down, they have amnesia. And that's basically what happened there.
And that information right there, that then Senator Edward Kennedy was deliberately drugged to create an assassination attempt, because it was an attempt, wasn't a for sure thing.
That's right.
And this is the first time, well, actually, it was on the Edward Kennedy part 3 that you disclose this. Is that the first time that this information has ever been disclosed in public?
I have been putting it out there, and MJ12 has been calling me a fraud, delusional. They had an outfit that was basically part of their misinformation outfit,
Right.
and they called themselves, I think it was like Fake Warrior or FakeWarrior.com, and they put me out there as being a fraud, and then they claimed that I had not been prosecuted because FBI and those guys had a backlog. Well, I've been doing this since '69, and FBI does not have any kind of 20, 30-year backlog. You know, and if I was a fraud, or who they say, they would have prosecuted me for impersonating an agent of the United States government. They would have prosecuted me for impersonating an officer, because I've got my identity stuff that says 04. And I told people I was a major, military rank, military credit for time served with civilian status. And now, actually, McCain helped me get some documents. And I've got documents to prove it, because I've got my debriefing form. And my debriefing form shows 04 rank, but it goes back to 67. They were not using social security numbers for regular military in 67. They were using O numbers for officers, RA numbers for enlisted. And mine,
define that, what that
okay,
means.
an O number was for an officer. Like, say, an officer would have O 569 28 32 54. It would be like, say, an O in front of either a social security number or whatever number they were using at the time. And that meant officer. RA meant regular Army, or RN, regular Navy, etc. And that would be for enlisted personnel like sergeants, corporals, and things like that.
Right.
I've also got a copy of my what they call it, DOD, not man, and my what do they call it now, discharge. I've got a copy of my discharge documents.
14.
Yep. And on my discharge documents, it says Army, right? RA, which is regular Army, but that's my enlistment, because then it goes from there. The next two letters are MI. MI is military intelligence.
Right.
Regular Army enlisted intelligence were Army Security Agency. So an enlisted man coming out of intelligence would have RAASA, regular Army, Army Security Agency. All MI were officers. Their military intelligence were the officers leading all of your regular Army, regular Navy, etc. They were the officers who were in charge of all of the enlisted personnel. And they were the people who would be undercover, etc. So now I've got my documents, and even back then I said, come charge me. Come on. I told that outfit, I said, hey, if you guys think I'm a fake, and they even sent a deal that they reported me to National Security Agency, the CIA, the DOD. They reported me to everybody. But nobody ever knocked on my door to tell me, stop doing what you're doing. you're a fraud or whatever.
Right. All
So
right. So through the military, that's how you got recruited into the NSA?
right. I
What year?
started out Army. I went Army and I excelled. Matter of fact, I told him I was interested in spy work. And that got me interested because my dad was the guy who kept the Normandy Day invasion records on his person 24/7. But I didn't tell him who my dad was. Instead of taking a star, he came home and my dad became the commander for the California National Guard. And if they look up Colonel Benoit or Benoist, they will see commander for the California National Guard. And so because I wanted to beat my dad. I wanted to make it on my record, not his. I didn't want any favoritism because of who he was. And so I went in and I told him, and my dad he'd opened a insurance brokerage. He was the first independent insurance agent. He convinced the insurance companies to let him write business they did not want with companies that did want it. So he had about 5 or 6 different insurance companies that he was writing insurance for, and his clients would have insurance with 4 or 5 companies through him. And so I went in and they said, well, we got to put you in regular stuff first and we'll watch you. Well, I got 178.4 on my GT score. You need 110 for officer.
What's a
And
GT
so then
score?
they put me he was the toughest infantry commander, known to be the toughest in all of the Army for infantry training, etc. Captain Springer.
What's a GT score?
A GT score, that's kind of like your IQ test, your military IQ test.
Okay.
To
Military
tell,
aptitude, basically.
it's actually military, civilian, and everything. It
Okay.
shows the military everything that you might know. If you know electronics, if you're a linguist, they use your IQ
Okay.
to then decide where you might be a benefit to the military.
Okay. If
And
I'm just
because I
strong.
was high enough in all of them, they said, okay, let's put him in. He wants to be a spy. Let's see if he could, do that kind of stuff.
Right.
Because they'll pull spies out of your Green Berets. They'll pull spies out of your Navy SEALs. Sometimes your Rangers end up going into that work. If they're smart enough and good enough, MJ12 is always watching, and they want to pull the best into their outfit. So if they can convince you, hey, work with us, you're the best, they'll grab you. And I got the highest commander's evaluation that Captain Springer had ever given. You got 100 for performance possible and 100 for knowledge. And so you had 200 possible total. The highest he had ever given as a combined total was 75. And he told him, he says, they're just through basic. They're just starting to learn. So 37.5, as far as he was concerned, was a high score for somebody just getting out of basic. He called me in and he said, Benoit, he says, I called you in because it's evaluation time. I said, yes, sir, I know that. Thank you. And he says, well, I want you to know nobody's perfect. And I kind of looked surprised. And I said, well, sir, I hope to God I never made anybody think that I think I'm perfect. I said, I don't want to give off that kind of aura like I'm high-minded and I'm perfect. I said, that's not my goal at all. He said, no. He said, you didn't do that. He said, I just wanted to say that and let you know that because of the fact that nobody's perfect, I had to dock you a point or two. I said, oh, that's okay. And he says, but I want you to know in my command, I did not see any imperfection. My score was 198.5. I got an Army commendation and a presidential citation graduating from basic and an immediate promotion as well. So I got out of basic. I think instead of E2, I was E3. And by the time I went to advanced infantry training, they had me at E4. And so then, I got the highest commander's evaluation out of advanced infantry training. And then I went to Ranger. And then I was going to OCS and I was excelling there. And the boys in black came and said, are you still interested in being a spy? I said, yeah. They said, come with us. I said, well, I'm here at OCS now. They said, you come with us And if you keep doing what you've been doing, we will take care of your commission. Well, then when I got together with Colonel Millett, who founded the intelligence school, I wasn't a personnel officer. When I got my discharge, DD 214, I knew MI showed something because I'd seen plenty of regular discharges, Army ASA, you know. And so I visited Colonel Millett at Idlewild, where he lived. And I said, I'm not a personnel officer, but I said, I know this gives me some evidence I need. And I said, mine is not U.S. Army RA ASA, it's RA MI. He said, yeah. He said, I got one just like it. Colonel Millett went from Private E1 to full bird colonel with a Medal of Honor on top of it. And he said, I've got one just like it. He said, RAMI, he said, your regular Army enlistment contract ended right here at RA where it goes to MI. He said, they gave you a direct commission. But he said, my DD 214 is absolute positive proof I was an officer.
Okay.
Boom.
All right. So that's how you got into the NSA. When were you employed or attached to the NSA? What years?
Actually, it was, let's see. I did my training 66, 67. In 67, early 67, late 66 or early 67, they sent a group of our guys. I think it was late 66. Yeah, it was late 66. They sent our guys to Vietnam. And that's where we went to Camp Lejeune for orientation as to what Vietnam was going to be like and all of that stuff. And by then, as a matter of fact, they held me back and then commissioned me. And then they took me through everything at Camp Lejeune with a bunch of special trainers and that. And then they flew me to Vietnam to join the group as an officer and as platoon leader. And the commander, they had a colonel. They wanted him to get a star. He'd never been in the battlefield. To get a star, you had to have a battlefield command, and you had to be, knowledgeable, etc., in that area.
Right.
So they wanted him to get a star. Well, the guy didn't even know how to read a map, really. And I tried to tell him, sir, I think we're in the wrong bay. I don't think we're where you think we are. We should not land. We need to double check where we are. And he said, don't tell me how to read a map. He said, look at the skyline. The skyline's right. I said, sir, the skyline looks like the topo skyline. But I said, you see that boulder right over there? And you see the smaller boulder in front of it? And he said, well, the high tide will cover that small boulder. I said, yes, sir. And I said, anything a ship can hit, I said, fog can hide the other boulder. Because the one boulder can be covered, it has to be on the map. Just like at Crescent City, Jonathan Rock, that the Jonathan ship ran into and sank, there's no black dot there, but there's these wavy lines showing that it's a rock underwater, and in those wavy lines is written Jonathan Rock.
Huh.
They named it after the Jonathan that went down because of it. So
Wow.
I told him, I said, anything a ship can hit has got to be shown on the topo. There are no rocks in the water. And I told him, I says, go to the skipper of the boat, get the longitude and latitude off the Loran, and I will plot exactly where we are. Well, the skipper of the boat doesn't need to know where we are. He has no need to know. I said, sir, you don't have to tell him anything. Just tell him you want the longitude and latitude off of the Loran and let him anchor for a moment so that we will be exactly where I plot us to be. Don't tell me, Benoit. I know what I'm doing. You stay back here. You send your assistant in. You're going to stay with me. I don't want you scaring them in. You and I are going to go in later. So he sent everybody in, And I told my guys, I said, you're not assault trained. And I told them, I said, I don't care if you got to breathe out your ass, you stay low. And I said, somebody tells you to stand up and walk around or whatever, you tell them you're under orders to stay low and stay on guard and keep watch. And, but it was, I don't know, maybe an hour or so, hour and a half, bunches of landing party and everything is there. Might have been 3 hours. All of a sudden, all hell broke loose. He was 28 clicks off course, landed the guys on a communist-held stronghold beach. And the communists just let them all come up. They stay hidden. And then when everybody's standing up and moving around, they hit them with all they had. It took 3 days of artillery and airstrike to drive the communists back far enough to go in and retrieve bodies and equipment. And I wanted the guy court-martialed for negligent homicide. And they said, no, we're just going to retire him. And I was super pissed. But that's where I met a guy who's one of my best friends today, Roger Grinstead. And Roger was over there with Army Security Agency. He was like their computer programmer and repair, radio repair, etc. And so he took care of all of their fancy equipment, and he had to be cleared for that. And so I was at Tan Son Nhut, which is Saigon now, and I was at the PX, and I was looking at these Meerschaum pipes, and Roger saw the brass I had because I wasn't going to be going in the field, so I had my regular brass on. And he said, I'm Army Security Agency over here at the base over here, do the repair stuff. And we started talking about the pipes. Later, they moved me back to Washington, took me back to Washington to our main training camp and everything there, and had me do a bunch of undercover work there. So basically, from the time of that battle, they took me into National Security Agency Internal Affairs. That's one of the things they used to buy me off. They said, you're not going to be a first lieutenant anymore. We're making you captain, and we're putting you in a major slot. You keep doing what you're doing, and you get the same eval you've been getting, and on the next evaluation, you'll be a major. And they said, you'll be internal affairs for national security, and at that point, if you see a colonel like that guy doing something wrong, you can put him under arrest immediately. So I figured, okay, at least I'll be able to do something. So they sent me back then to Fort Devens to do this undercover work and everything. And people didn't know it, but we had a bunch of nuclear warheads stored at Fort Devens in Air, Massachusetts. And a couple of them came up missing. It took me less than 24 hours to break that case and have the two people that were responsible and recover the warheads. So then they said, hey, you're a hot shot. You know, we're elevating you. They said, we're giving you your eval now. Your rank is permanent. And I was allergic to the shots that they needed really to like send me to overseas to Germany and stuff. But they said, we've got to give you these shots for Germany. We're ordered, we've got to send you to Germany. There's a bunch of stuff breaking loose over there that's going to be happening. And that was the Czechoslovakian crisis. So they said, we've got to give you one shot at a time, bring you through the reaction, and you're going overseas. And then that's where I ended up in Germany, which is where then I ended up with working with the 12, because that was our most secret base in the world. We took Hitler's base we couldn't find, turned it into our base, and that was basically the center for the 12. That's where they kind of had their hidden meetings and stayed hidden.
Huh. Okay. I'm not going to say that's coincidental, but all right. All right. So that got you into MJ12. And you did that up until 69, correct?
Yeah, and actually, I found out what was going on, and I told them they needed to change and straighten up. Basically, that was around, I'd say February or March of 69. I had already put in for permission to marry a German national, and God set that up, timing and everything. And they said, and I said, you guys need to obey the law. They said, we are the law. Because once I got over there, I had carte blanche access, and I learned about the room where they kept all of the records that would be swiftly destroyed if the enemy started coming at us. They had this room, and everything in that room could be destroyed within 5 minutes. Well, I knew that's where they're going to hide the stuff they don't want anybody to see.
Right.
So on my so-called off time, or any time I had, I would go into that room, and I went through records going all the way back to the 20s. And they even had some records in there going back to World War I in 1911.
Okay. All right. So that gets us caught up to your tenure
Right.
at the NSA and with Majestic 12. So let's dive into Martin Luther King, what that looks like. I pulled up his Wikipedia page just to kind of give everybody a quick little synopsis of what he is all about. Run through this real quick. Here you go. Martin Luther King Jr. And again, this is Wikipedia. Take it with a grain of salt. Not everything you see here is 100% accurate. So we'll leave it at that. Martin Luther King Jr., born Michael King Jr., January 15th, 1929, and assassinated April 4th, 1968. He was an American Baptist minister, activist, and political philosopher who was one of the most prominent leaders in the civil rights movement from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. King advanced civil rights for people of color in the United States through the use of nonviolent resistance and nonviolent civil disobedience against Jim Crow laws and other forms of legalized discrimination. And there's a picture of MLK. And we will dive into what actually you see. Where was it at? Here you go. King was jailed several times. Federal Bureau of Investigation Director J. Edgar Hoover considered King a radical and made him. Let's talk about Hoover on a
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. Hoover would definitely basically try to brand Martin Luther King, because Hoover was like the sergeant at arms for MJ-12.
Right.
And Martin Luther King, his main idol was the guy who started the Lutheran Church, because Martin Luther, the Catholic Church originally said that only priests could have Bibles, only priests could interpret the Bible, because common people did not have the spirit and the understanding from God to be able to interpret the Bible. And Martin Luther said, nuh-uh, God's word is for everybody. And that's why Martin Luther King took Martin Luther as his hero, and that the Bible and salvation and freedom fit the Bible verse. There is neither red, yellow, black, nor white, bond nor free, male nor female in the Lord, for we are all one in the Lord. And that was one of his favorite verses. And that was like the driving force behind him and his movement. And of course, J. Edgar Hoover and MJ-12, oh, there's definite separation. They literally said people are too stupid to decide their own destiny. And I said, hey, wait a minute, man. God gave us salvation. God gave people the right to decide and gave people choice on the cross, which is a blood covenant, can only be broken by the destruction of the one who breaks it. And I said, you guys are not God. They said, we're God for this world.
Right. Let me read this quick synopsis. In 1968, King was planning a national occupation of Washington, D.C. Wow, when have we heard that before? To be called the Poor People's Campaign. When he was assassinated on April 4th in Memphis, Tennessee, James Earl Ray, a fugitive from the Missouri State Penitentiary, was convicted of the assassination. Though the King family believes he was a scapegoat, the assassination remains the subject of conspiracy theories. King's death was followed by national mourning as well as anger, leading to riots in many U.S. cities. King was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1977 and the Congressional Gold Medal in 2003. Martin Luther King Jr. Day was established as a holiday in cities and states throughout the United States beginning in 1971. The federal holiday was first observed in 1986. The Martin Luther King Memorial on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. was dedicated in 2011. So let's dive into this. What do you know about the plot to assassinate MLK as far as pre-assassination planning, the actors involved, the authorities that created and established the assassination attempt, the after effects, what you know about James Earl Ray and his position in all of this? Were there other conspirators in the assassination? And if you know about the cover up, explain that as well.
Yep. If people will, matter of fact, we've got a really good, more current example of the same plan, shall we say. Martin Luther King was going to fill Washington, D.C. peacefully because his marches were peaceful. The only violence in his marches were basically people attacking him and his people. And MJ-12 and their sergeant at arms, the head of the FBI, Hoover, plotted against him to prevent that. And there again, they did the assassination prevention like they had done in previous instances or plans like that. This last time, they couldn't go against the person who actually had a peaceful statement being made in Washington. So they paid, George Soros paid people to put on Donald Trump t-shirts and stir up violence. And then the MJ-12 agents and cooperatives and partners in the radical Democrat group claimed that it was an insurrection and the beginning of a civil war, and Donald Trump was the leader of it. And quite frankly, when Trump had his Supreme Court cases, people can check this, I sent the Supreme Court in both cases what's called an amicus curiae brief. It's a friend of the court brief. In it, I put my credentials that I can't show everybody, and I gave it to them to be sealed and for their eyes only, so they would know that I know what I'm talking about, and I am who I say I am. In that, I told them that back in the 70s, the militias across the U.S. wanted me to lead them, and they wanted to go ahead and seize every government hospital, every government agency, every government office. And there were several thousand. And we could have done it. And they wanted to totally seize every government office and refuse to release those offices until Washington, D.C. made a treaty agreement and changed a bunch of stuff. And they wanted me to lead them. And I said, guys, if I'm your leader and we go to court, basically I'd have to answer questions or they'd have me for contempt of court and all kinds of stuff. I said, I'm a minister. I'm a credentialed minister. I went into ministry for a reason. I said, I will be your national chaplain. And then you guys can ask me for advice. And we're covered by minister parishioner privilege, which is the same as attorney-client privilege. And so I told him, I said, I worked some with Bush and we got some stuff done. And I said, we'll keep looking. And I said, I will try to recruit and get good people to run for office. And we'll try to get the right people in office where we can get some things done. I started building that group And that is the group that basically spread. And I also founded the National American Indian Veterans, Glory to God United Ministries Worldwide, Truckers Fight for Justice. So I founded a bunch of national and international groups who know they can trust my word. And I put out the word, we need Reagan in office. And I had already left that. I signed off on the Democrats. And I told them, I said, that's it, man. Reagan's going to be the president. He's the only one we could trust. And I told Reagan, I said, you need to make a covenant with God and take a stand for God. And if you do, God will protect you. And Reagan opened the national convention for the Republicans. And he said, I'm a little afraid to do this, but I'm more afraid not to. And he said, let us have a moment of silent prayer and pray for the guidance of God. And I said, amen. Boom. He's doing it. And Reagan and I set up a deal where I would put codes on anything that I sent him. And my stuff was in a special paper. And he told everybody, you see this special envelope comes in, and it's got these codes on it. If somebody opens it and it does not get to me, that person will be at Leavenworth. And he told him, I'll try you for treason. He said, and you just might get hung. He made no bones about it. And he told me that he would show me that he got my letter or my information. And if I didn't see and get the confirmation that he got it, then send it again by another means. And what he would do is he would have a press conference. So I would watch, I'd send my stuff, and I would watch. Within 2 weeks, he'd have a press conference. In that press conference would be 2 or 3 sentences from my communication, word for word. When I saw those 2 or 3 sentences from my communication, word for word, I knew he got my communication. And people didn't know it, but people that were applying for college, the college entrance form had a question on it: have you received your mark yet? The Democrats expected to beat Reagan, and they were ready to implement a mark. People who had Social Security checks, that was their money, they had it coming, and IRS tax refunds, they had the money coming. Their checks, they could not do anything with because the check had a little statement on it: bearer must have mark in right hand or forehead. And I sent that evidence to Reagan, and I said, if you're going to keep your covenant with God, kill this program. He killed the program, and they shot him a week later.
Well, hold on, go back and repeat that over.
Yeah, true story. See, we had a deal, Reagan and I would send him communications. He would have a press conference, and 2 or 3 sentences that were in the communications I sent him would be in that press conference, word for word. He'd read it off the teleprompter or whatever, and it would be word for word. And then I knew he got my information. And I sent him information showing that the Democrats expected to win the election, and they were ready to implement the mark. They were going to demand everybody in America get a mark in the right hand or forehead. They had a little computer chip that they could put in the back of your neck with less irritation than a mosquito bite. That computer chip and that mark on your right hand or forehead would allow them to monitor everything about you 24/7. They would know your blood pressure. They'd know if you were having sex. They would know where you were and everything going on, because that computer chip could constantly feed the computer every detail.
And what year was this?
They had that ready to go in 1980.
1980. So that was during the Carter administration that the Democrats came out with this nefarious plan. It's satanic.
Yeah, it was ready to go, going from Carter. Oh, they expected to win, and when Reagan won, and that's why they were going to win, so they released all of these applications, figuring their man was going to be in power, and Reagan beat him. And all of a sudden, boom, 1980, Reagan killed that program. And it wasn't too long after that, I sent him stuff on it, and he basically discovered more about it. And then he made moves to kill every bit of it. And when he made the moves needed to kill all of it, then he was shot not too long after that.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's the tie-in.
So basically, the same technology that Elon Musk is developing with the Neuralink brain implant.
Right.
That's the public aspect of it. Okay. That's being
right.
released. Here we are, what, 50 years later, roughly?
And actually, MJ12 and the NSA does not release anything to the civilian market until they are 50 years ahead of it. So AI coming out, NSA and MJ12 has stuff that is 50 years ahead of what's being released.
Yes, absolutely. And let me ask you, this is totally off topic, but I'm going to ask the question now.
Sometimes we go down a good rabbit trail.
Yeah. Did you have any interaction or a relationship with the late retired Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso?
I know the name.
Okay. That's from Roswell.
He might know me or whatever. The name sounds familiar.
Okay.
One that I did interact with when I was there as a government agent and stuff was our reverse engineering guy, Bob Lazar. That's why I remembered his name, because he was in reverse engineering. And did Colonel Corso, was he where we had some of the ETs pickled in formaldehyde?
Right.
Was he in some of that section?
He was in the foreign technology office for, I believe, the Army. Here we go. And pull up his Wikipedia. Wikipedia is so handy. I read the book the day after Roswell. All right. Philip James Corso. He passed away in 1998. He was an American Army officer. He served the United States Army from February 23rd.
He looks really familiar, super familiar.
Yeah, he earned the rank of lieutenant colonel. Published the day after Roswell. He had a co-author that probably wrote the gist of it. Counterintelligence Corps in Rome for Army intelligence.
Okay.
Let's see. Corso was on the staff of President Eisenhower's National Security Council for 4 years, from 53 to 57.
Okay, yeah, I knew him then. I know who he is now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I met one of the guys over there. I don't remember. He was a higher officer when I was there, and he had mentioned, because I talked about my experience with Eisenhower, where Eisenhower drove by the school because he wanted to see one of Dad's boys. Okay. And he says, "Oh, I worked for Eisenhower at one time."
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. In 1961, Corso became the chief of the Pentagon's Foreign Technology Desk in Army Research and Development, working under Lieutenant General Arthur Trudeau.
Trudeau, I knew. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, what they had is one of those 3 and 4 drawer old metal file cabinets that had some type of locking system on it.
Yep.
And Trudeau would call Corso into his office, and they'd have some foreign material, whatever it was, the silicone chip, microwave, the laser technology, a bunch of different technologies came from this file cabinet.
Yeah.
And it's recovered alien technology.
Yep.
And what Corso's job strictly was, working under Trudeau, was to take this technology, whatever it was, and incorporate it into the private sector, whether that would be, and I'm just going to throw this out there because I know it exists, Penn State University's Department of Naval Research Laboratory, or
Right.
you're somebody like Boeing or Marietta, Lockheed Martin,
Yep.
companies like that, or universities or corporations. I'll just use Microsoft or Apple or someplace like that.
Right.
They take the technology to their research and development department and say, hey, we have this. We don't know what it is. Can you reverse engineer it? And boom. That's how we got this leap in technology after 1947. So
Right.
that's what Roswell or Corso did. If you ever get a chance to read this book the day after Roswell, it is an excellent book, very eye-opening. Here's one of your majestic 12. Corso also says a covert government group was assembled under the leadership of Admiral Roscoe H. Hillenkoetter, the first
Yep.
director of the Central Intelligence, C Majestic 12. Among its tasks was to collect all information of off-planet technology. The U.S. administration simultaneously discounted the existence of flying saucers in the eyes of the public, Corso says.
Right. And see, I purposely, God kept me away from all of those things like that and all of these different theological books,
Right?
because they would claim that I was the product of what I read. But having never read any of that, and I'm saying the same thing, now we have two independent testimonies, and two independent testimonies saying the same thing gives you a conviction at trial.
Okay.
So that's why I've operated the way I have.
Right.
And yeah, but I knew him and some of those guys.
And we'll get into all this. We'll do some more shows and we'll talk about all this stuff specifically. But some of the reversed engineered artifacts, accelerated particle beams, which I'm sure have evolved into directed energy weapons, fiber
Yep.
optics,
Yeah.
lasers, integrated circuit
Yeah.
chips, and Kevlar material. In the book, Corso claims the Strategic Defense Initiative, SDI, or Star Wars, it was so fondly adopted by Congress and the executive branch during the Reagan administration, was meant to achieve the destructive capacity of electronic guidance systems in incoming enemy warheads, as well as disabling enemy spacecraft, including those of extraterrestrial origin. So not to get off the topic of MLK, but
Yeah. Well, and see, actually, Martin Luther knew about a lot of this stuff too, because friends he had, people who would, let's say, get their life straight, and they would talk to him, etc. And look at Corso's photo, and think for a minute. Look at Corso's photo, and see what kind of feel you get off of his picture.
let me pop it back up for everybody.
Now look at that look, and look at that photo. Now you're looking at that face. Do you feel like trust coming off of that face, or do you feel like watch out?
You're the profiler.
But and that, see, and the thing is, off of that face, he's got the CIA face. I mean, CIA agents, it's like I look at them and they've got that watch out face.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, and this is like another little side question. I
Yeah.
hate to get off topic, but because I have this issue with people claiming to espouse intelligence from the United States government. So you're definitely been cleared way above top secret clearance.
Oh yeah.
That's the highest of the high, I would assume. And when you're in that position, and you go on social media like you are right now, if you were still in the intelligence community, still had your security clearance, could you be able to expose intel in the public sphere? What would happen to you? What are the consequences if you did that?
Well, actually, see, my authority and my clearance, the expiration date and that is listed right on the document, indefinite. I still have it. See, that's why I could easily interact with Trump. And matter of fact, when I went there with the American Indians, and then Secret Service and everything came over and they wanted to see what was in the tube and everything, I gave to one guy my ID and said, just have your watch commander check my ID. And the guy came back and he says, who's Benoist? And I said, that'd be me. He came up to me, saluted, said, glad to meet you, sir. Guys, he's cleared. And the one black guy with his badge, he comes up and he says, I'm Secret Service. He says, who the H are you? I said, MAGCOM, seat 13, Internal Affairs for All Matters of National Security, introducing, more or less retired. And he's like, oh, well, you know, and even my cousin, Marvin Young Dog, was there. He saw the look on that guy's face. And anytime I introduce myself to like a Secret Service agent or somebody who knows what's going on that way, you will see the reaction of, oh, you know. And so, but I cannot, there's still stuff I cannot talk about, but all the stuff I'm talking about is stuff that I got Bill Clinton and Reagan and Bush and Trump to basically expose. When the president declares something as no longer top secret or above top secret, etc., then I can expose it, number one. Number two, they might try me or charge me if I exposed some of the secrets. However, as long as I've got a good defense that, hey, I'm exposing this because the people need to know, and exposing it is in the interest of national security, they wouldn't be able to get a conviction. But they'd make life hell for me.
Yeah, that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And
see, right. I in the brief that I gave the Supreme Court, I told the Supreme Court the militias called me with all this evidence of election fraud and asked me what to do, and I told them Antifa and those guys get maybe 50, 100, 150 people. They cause violence. They do a lot of harm to innocent people. I said, go fill Washington, D.C. If you can get 2 or 3 million of our people in there, fill Washington, D.C. But I said, check in with President Trump. Let him know that I sent you and that we are there to peacefully demonstrate and to peacefully say to the Electoral College, we have evidence of election fraud from all 50 states, and we demand that the Electoral College be put on hold pending an independent investigation. So we were calling for a proper independent investigation, and Trump told everybody, hey, they talked to me. Yeah, I told them be peaceful. So they coordinated. And the guards were letting them in at first because they knew our guys were there to be peaceful. Soros and those guys paid a bunch of guys to go cause violence wearing Trump t-shirts. And then the Democrats started screaming, it's a revolution, it's a revolution. Oh, we've got to, close everything down.
Allegedly.
Smear and fear. They used fear to shut it down and smear to keep it shut down. And they charged the innocent and put the innocent in jail. The Soros paid people were released.
Yeah. Yes. We
and
came
that's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff King was fighting too.
Right. Yeah. We've came very close to having a satanic country.
Yeah. See, so they used the same main tactic that they used against King, except with King, they killed him to kill Washington being filled with a bunch of people calling for what's right. And they shot and caused violence with Trump t-shirts on their soldiers in order to stop Trump and our people from filling DC and demanding what was right. That's the similarities between the two. They just altered the king tactics a little bit to fit the time of the day. And then they use smear and fear against Trump.
Wow. All right, let's dive into the Martin Luther King assassination. Who planned it? Who set it up?
MJ-12 planned it. Deals like that is always the 12. They don't, well, when I was in, I could have done it as seat 13 because I was I was internal affairs for all matters of national security. I could have I could put a bullet between a person's eyes and have no investigation. They'd get a Warren type report. You know, this is what the report says. This is the way it is, you know? And
Right.
so I would be able to do that. Oh, just a second, kind of put a
Sure.
hold on. I got the hospital. Oh, they're gone.
Go ahead and take it. Go ahead and take that call. All right, I got it right here. Noel's going to take a call backstage, and I will handle it from here. So, astonishing information being released today regarding all over the place. That's why I love talking to Noel, because I let him go a little bit and we get a whole new subject, a whole new topic, a whole new show to do. So I'm very thrilled about that. And it looks like he's completed his task.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. That was mainly the hospital confirming my Monday appointment with cardiology.
Okay. Yeah. Anytime you need to take a call or anything like this, let me know.
Yep.
I'll bump you backstage.
Yep. And see, the thing is, I care about this so much that's why cardiology is getting after me. My blood pressure has been running 160 to 180.
Wow.
And constantly over 140 is danger of stroke. So they got me on blood pressure meds. The second number has actually been fairly good. And so, but and I told him, I mean, the top number I can't really do a whole lot about because this is so important to me, but God's keeping me alive. So even with high blood pressure, I'm I'm staying alive.
Right. Yeah, I get it. Thank you for doing this.
And I've got pictures of my blood pressure showing like 160, 179, 180, stuff like that. Matter of fact, I took my blood pressure this morning and sent that in. And look, come here, you get the right deal here. Oh, come on. Boom. Come on. Trying to get a picture up here. These touch deals sometimes are a pain. Let's see. There we go. Come here now. There we go. Okay. So maybe you can see this.
Let me bump me off the screen.
173 over 69, pulse 60.
That's nuts, bro.
So I tell the people the truth, and I tell people don't ask me a question if you're not ready for the answer, because I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not. And I know Trump didn't like me telling him that J.D. Vance was possibly a bad pick, and I ran my write-in campaign to make a statement. But I told him, I said, I'm trying to save you from yourself. And that's one thing about Trump that Trump appreciates about me. He knows I'm going to tell him the truth no matter what. I won't. Right. I mean, when he makes his decision, I'll go along with him. And now I'm praying that, and I told him, I said, well, as long as J.D. Vance is going to be the vice president, we need to really show J.D. Vance the whole truth about MJ-12 and just how bad they are. And then we need J.D. Vance to take the path that I took, which is to say MJ-12 is bad and they got to straighten up. And the ones that won't straighten up and the ones that have done horrific wrongs need to be dealt with. And prayerfully, so, you know, if we can get him totally on our side, if he can become, and it's wild because I got one deal I posted. Trump sent me a email. Noel Benoist, vice president. That's got a really great sound. And instead of saying, yes, I'll do it, I probably should have said yes. I don't know. I hope I didn't make a mistake. But I said, well, you know, I don't like the spirit of DC, but if you need me, I'll come. And so then he decided with all the stuff I've done, he didn't want to impose, you know. And so then he chose Vance. And well, then actually he sent me, I've got instant messages from him. I want my VP to be exactly like Noel. Who shall I pick? And when he found Vance and he decided to choose Vance, that's when I looked Vance up and everything. And Vance is a whole lot like me, you know. So he did pick somebody that's a whole lot like Noel. The trouble is he's also like me with an MJ-12 contacts.
Right.
he's an ideal MJ-12 operative too. So prayerfully he's going to be like me and flip to our side.
Wow. Okay. All right. Let's dive back into Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
MJ-12 set up the entire thing. So was James Earl Ray deliberately released, escaped from a Missouri penitentiary to go be the patsy, the scapegoat for this particular act? And was it actually conducted by another person or persons?
It was a setup. It was a setup. And yeah, they you know, they will pick prisoners to do stuff with, and you know, they'll basically they can pick. They know they've got a database of people who can potentially be used for whatever, and that database is well, it's in their big computer. And with AI and all the other stuff they've got, and profilers like me have done stuff, then they will always have anywhere from 10 to 50. Oh, hospital's calling back.
Go ahead. I got you. All right. Kick him backstage for a second. Unbelievable. The information that we're receiving. So James Earl Ray is a patsy, obviously not the assassin, as we have been led to believe, but it is what it is. You're hearing this, you know, straight from the source. I'm going to ask him another question because most of you are unfamiliar with Cray computers. If you know anything about Cray computers, they were the supercomputer, the godfather of supercomputers. They were the first ones that was created by what was Cray's full name? I keep wanting to say Robert Cray, and they are still in existence. Get over here and cover those real quick. And Noel looks like he's still on the phone. Are you good to go?
They get.
Okay, he's still on the phone. Couldn't tell if he's talking to me or talking to the phone, to the iPad. So here we go. This is Cray Incorporated, a subsidiary of Hewlett Packard Enterprise, is an American supercomputer manufacturer headquartered in Seattle, Washington. It also manufactures systems for data storage and analytics. Several Cray supercomputer systems are listed in the top 500, which ranks the most powerful supercomputers in the world. In 1972, the company was founded by computer designer Seymour Cray as Cray Research Incorporated, and it continues to manufacture parts in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, where Cray was born and raised. After being acquired by Silicon Graphics in 1996, the modern company was formed after being purchased in 2000 by Terra Computer Company, which adopted the name Cray Inc. In 2019, the company was acquired by Hewlett Packard Enterprise for a sum certain of $1.3 billion. So, in 1950, Seymour Cray began working in the computing field when he joined Engineering Research Associates, ERA, in St. Paul, Minnesota. There, he helped create ERA 1103. ERA eventually became part of UNIVAC and began to be phased out. In 1960, he left the company a few years after former ERA employees set up Control Data Corporation, CDC. He initially worked out of the CDC headquarters in Minneapolis, but grew upset by constant interruptions by managers. He eventually set up a lab in his hometown of Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, about 85 miles to the east. Cray had a string of successes at CDC, including CDC 6600 and CDC 7600. Cray Research Incorporated and Cray Computer Corporation, 72 to 1976. When CDC ran into financial difficulties in the late 60s, development funds for Cray's follow-up on CDC 8600 became scarce. When he was told the project would have to be put on hold, in 1972, Cray left to form his own company, Cray Research Inc. Copying the previous arrangement, Cray kept the research and development facilities in Chippewa Falls and put the business headquarters in Minneapolis. The company's first product, the Cray 1 supercomputer, was a major success because it was significantly faster than all other computers at the time. The first system was sold within a month for $8.8 million. Seymour Cray continued working, this time on Cray 2, though it ended up being only marginally faster than the Cray XMP, developed by another team at the company. And go in. But I just wanted to cover that about the Cray computers, because I know Noel is going to know a little bit about that and have something to add to that. So as you see, funding fell off in the late 60s. So who stepped in and funded Cray Computers, took it over? Who bought the first one? All right, looks like Noel's back. So let's dig in.
Yeah. And basically, in a lot of that funding, most of when a person hits, let's say, the billionaire range, they're going to meet MJ12, and so some of them will make a deal with them, and some of them they really don't want to fight with per se, so they'll allow them to be independent, but they won't be able to go as far as they might have gone otherwise. Hughes was definitely in league. Howard Hughes, I think it was, right? The big, multi-millionaire, etc. And matter of fact, a lot of his technology and a lot of the stuff he came up with came from reverse engineering as well as the Philadelphia experiment.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, he knew a lot about a lot of that stuff. And see, Martin Luther King was always like, say, in the mix per se, as far as he would meet a lot of these people and he would try to get them to come and to go the right way. So a lot of his knowledge came from ministry, but MJ12 was basically afraid of, would he, let's say, keep silence or whatever, or would he talk, and how much does he know? And the main thing that got them was then he decided that, hey, there's only one way it's going to get done, and that's by his march to Phil Washington and to demand that things be done. And so at that point, for them, he crossed the line. And so then basically they go to their database and they look at the possibles that could do the job. And they pick they'll just go down the line. They'll take their first choice first. And if the first choice doesn't want to do it for some reason, they'll usually, if they're really good, they'll save them for something else. And then they get to where they've got somebody who says, yeah, I'll do it. And they go from there. So with me, I was their first pick on a lot of stuff, and most of it I did because I thought I was doing what was right, including a
Right.
couple of eliminations of threats to national security in Vietnam, etc. And I found out that they were innocent. And that's when I found out that the Viet Cong were going to some of the shop holders and stuff. And it was like they were using the mob deal, pay your fire insurance or you're going to burn. And they would
Right.
say, you pay us so much money each month, or we're going to put you on our list as one of our high valued cooperatives, and the Americans will kill you. So America was the Guido for the Viet Cong. America was the kill team for the Viet Cong. And I told
Wow.
them, I said, guys, you're helping the enemy because we're doing exactly what they say. They put this name on the high value. We don't investigate. And I told them, I said, we don't even really need to investigate. All we've got to do, kidnap the list, take the list to Gitmo. Now the list is out of the way. They're not dead. And then we can see if there's a difference made. So if we take this person out and take them to Gitmo, and all of a sudden we're getting more victories and the Viet Cong are having problems, then we know we've got a really good cooperative who, is working with the VC. I said, then we could simply tell them that, guess what? Your buddies turned you in, and try to flip them and get them to work with us. If
Right.
they go to Gitmo and there is no difference in the war, we know there's somebody that the VC was twisting their arm to get money, and that should be an easy flip to get them to work for us. We'll give them the money to give to the VC, and then we'll give them false information. A little bit of it will be right, but it'll be enough wrong that it'll put the VC on the wrong track and we can get another victory. They didn't go for it.
Right.
And I
Okay.
told them, I said, I don't like killing innocent people.
Really?
Yeah,
How kind of you.
yeah. So I tell them, I'll kill an
Extremely
enemy, but
generous.
yeah, So, and at that point, I said, you're not giving me any more of these assignments because I'm not doing it. I'll tell you right now. And I stopped that one.
Right. Yeah, that weighs on your conscience after a while.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Uh dive back into MLK. All right. So James Earl Ray, obviously a patsy like Oswald, Sirhan, which we've covered
Right.
in the previous 3-part brother series. So who actually were the shooters? Were those contractees again, like they utilized with the JFK assassination, the RFK assassination?
I think James Earl Ray was probably the one who actually did the shooting, but he had
Okay.
a CIA agent behind him. And if he didn't shoot, the CIA agent, would have taken both of them out. So his backup had his back the wrong way.
Okay. Yeah. One
And
of those
he knew
double
it.
headshots. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the kind of stuff they do, And
Yeah.
then they tell him, hey, look, all I've got to do is kill both of you. I kill you. I killed Martin Luther King with the gun you were holding. And then I claim to be the one who killed the murderer. And I'm still the hero. And you're still the villain.
Right. Okay. So King's assassinated. Obviously, we know what the purpose was of his assassination was to quell the entire civil rights movement, the Black movement, the Black Panther movement, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of sociological change was happening there in the late '60s.
Right.
We could flow into 1969 with the Rolling Stones at Altamont with the Hells Angels stabbing, which kind of set the tone going from the peace, love, hippie flower movement, sexual freedom of the 60s, moving into a more tumultuous time of the 70s, which we had we're kind of in the middle of, I'm not even say, I'd say we're about 3/4 through the Vietnam War, because we had already been there previous to our public
Right.
incorporation to the Vietnam War.
Yep.
We were in there, what, 62?
We were in Cambodia and we were in Vietnam, actually, more around. I think they started sending advisors around 54, 55
Wow.
to deal with the government, and secret agents were there 54, 55, and they were training some of the Cambodians, etc. And then it just kept escalating. But we had advisors there in the 50s. And then their excuse was, well, we've got to be there in secret because we got Korea going on and we can't have two wars going on at the same time. People will be fearful that it'll break into World War III, and all that. And
Right.
so that was their excuse then for hiding stuff. And the ones who actually sponsored, trained, and instigated all the violence of the 70s is MJ-12. They did that on purpose to prove to America, because Kennedy said was going to further the peace and freedom deal. And we're at peace now. We can go all the way. And that's why they assassinated Kennedy and went against that whole thing. And then they started training people like the Hells Angels to be violent, etc., and stab them in the back and make sure they got violent, in order to say to the whole world, you cannot live without us.
Wow.
Yeah. And they flat ass said that. They said, we instigate wars. We built the Hells Angels. We built these different groups because we will prove to the world cannot exist without us. Smear and
That's
fear.
crazy.
Yeah. That's
Right.
the fear part of, But I tried to do smear and fear the right way. I said, well, smear and fear is good if you're using it the right way, but every tool can be used for wrong or for right.
That's nuts. Okay. What else can you tell us about MLK or the MLK assassination?
There again, all of the people who should have been investigated were protected. And then they investigate and smear anybody they can that's even close to it. And they would pull people in to participate in remotely or whatever, in order to be able to smear them and or threaten them and blackmail them to go their way, even going after Martin Luther King. So they basically tried to put off all of that and prevent integration for as long as they could. Fortunately, the seed of, look, why are we, saying these people are so different, and people started looking more at history. Hey, look, and people start saying, you know what? I mean, slavery is wrong, and then putting these people down is wrong, and then, hey, look what we did to the American Indians. That was wrong. So more people started doing self-examination. So the group they would have to handle started growing beyond being easily handled. So now they had to start influencing that group in a different way. So what did they use? They added lust to smear and fear. Dangle the carrot in front of the person and get them to desire that carrot above all things. Use women, use sex, use gold, use jewelry, use power, and if people would look, they started taking over all of these professional election committees right about Kennedy's time. From Kennedy on, election committees and elections started getting more and more expensive. More and more media involvement. See, and they started telling the media, look, we can make you a whole bunch of money. Work with us. Lust for money, lust for power. You know?
Right.
And you guys will be able to do this, and we'll get the FCC to look the other way. You can do this, we'll get the FTC to look the other way. You can do this, we'll get the FAA to look the other way.
Right.
And that's where we evolve into today. And then they try to call, well, any kind of, if you speak against somebody, that's wrong. We've gone from slavery is wrong to having an opposite opinion is wrong. If it's an opposite opinion against the ones who don't want you to have that opinion.
Right. Yeah, they're doing that in Europe, where
Yeah.
you speak out, and they put you in prison.
Yeah.
It's
In
insane.
third world countries. See? You bet. and they participated in a lot of these third world countries, fake elections where the people knew they had elected somebody else and they had riots, and they were using them to perfect being able to pull a fraud in our election. And Trump won clearly, but in the recounts, Democrat votes are going up because they have programs that can grab those votes, and a Republican that voted on election day, Republican, they can turn it into a Democrat vote and make it look like it was done on election day. That's why I told Trump and all of them, we need Elon Musk basically getting after some kind of a computer system that can find these things that they're going to change and prove it. And this time, if they want to try and claim victory late in the game, etc., if the numbers are going to suddenly change or start changing, with Trump, he was the victor, and all of a sudden there was hundreds of thousands, a sudden change. See? And I said, you guys had better be ready for it this time. And this time we need to be able to put the Electoral College on hold and have an investigation. And Elon Musk had better have the stuff that can find it and expose it.
Right. Elon?
Yeah, Elon Musk.
Okay. Wow, he's got quite a task on his hand.
Yep. And Elon, actually, I mean, he knows a lot. He's been involved in a lot. If we shut down MJ12, we can have a lot of technology that will change a lot of things in positive ways.
Okay. Anything else you want to add on to Martin Luther King's story?
All I can think of is prayerfully that, and then what was done with trying to kill Reagan and what was done with Trump. Prayerfully, that's going to wake up the people enough, and they will remember long enough, and they will get the idea in them and keep it, that if we do not stay on top of this, it will return. If you take, let's say, well, like a kleptomaniac, and a kleptomaniac embezzles $1 million from a bank, and then that kleptomaniac gets rehabilitated. You don't put him in charge of $1 billion with no supervision again, because that weakness is there,
Right.
And with me, I became the prodigal son. And I told him, I says, I don't want to go the way of like the televangelists, like Jimmy Stewart or Jimmy Swaggart and those guys.
Right.
And I tell my people, if I'm
Come on.
counseling, yeah, if I'm counseling a woman, the doors are wide open. And normally I want another guy and or gal there with me. See? And I tell them, I do not want to be left alone with a woman, any kind of female, whatever. I don't want to be left alone where I could be accused of anything wrong at all. With me, I
Right.
want all my stuff out in the open with witnesses that I can trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way. Uh, you know, it's so easy to toss out false accusations
Yeah,
and totally destroy somebody's reputation.
right. They tried it with me on another deal where I took a dishwashing thing and I was helping this restaurant with my recipes and stuff. And then the guy comes and he says, forget what I owe you and give me all your recipes, or me and my girls are going to claim that you sexually molested them. And then the defense attorney, a public defender, lied to me. He says, well, Noel, I said, you got to plead guilty to aggravating a minor. I said, wait a minute. I said, are you telling me that California law has got so bad that if you make a minor angry, you can be prosecuted? He says, yeah. He said, it's a misdemeanor, 15 days jail or whatever, but it's, that's it. So I said, man, I said, I did not purposely make any girl angry, but whatever. So I went
Right.
ahead and pled guilty. I went 15 days in jail, but I met the guy that I built a fishing deal with in there, and I ministered. And I even heard the guards, this guy's not guilty. You can tell that because I'm ministering to all the prisoners. They put me in a holding cell where these guys saved the toilet for people who tried to witness to them. And I started singing Amazing Grace to the tune of the House of the Rising Sun. And at first they're like, oh, and all of a sudden God hit me like an 800-watt megaphone. And boom, I boomed it out. And they're going, oh man, we thought you were kidding. Do you know this one? Do you know this one? Do you know this one? And those guys were getting saved. At the end of it, is now you got to go register as a sex offender. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I did not plead guilty to anything sexual. And the sergeant says, well, that's what this is. I said, my attorney did not tell me that. I went across the street to the public defender's office and I told him, I says, I want to see the head man or I'm going to make splinters out of this place. I will give you a reason to put me in jail. And I told him what his attorney did. We went back to court and he admitted to court that the attorney admitted to him what he did. They fired that attorney. We got it put back on for trial. And after trial, I found out one guy, before we even presented our side, one guy said, today's the day we send the preacher up the river. And the first vote was 11-1. The other 11 didn't vote not guilty. They wrote down innocent.
Wow.
And then, and the girls contradicted one another. And so then I went outside and the prosecutor was out there. And I told him, I says, hopefully you know what you've got now. He said, oh, you should have heard what they told me when they came out. They threatened to do the same thing to him. And I said, then now you know what you had from the get-go. And then the next day, papers read that the charges were totally dropped because it was felt that a second trial would not produce a guilty verdict.
Right.
And then,
Yeah.
then the judge, I think, ordered it expunged and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I am arm's length, open door, windows open, plenty of witnesses, please.
Exactly. Yeah, I won't even date a woman who has a child that's under 18 for that
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
When I was in prison, of course, I was a jailhouse lawyer. They call it a writ writer in Texas prisons, and I can't tell you how many trial records I read where the convicted felon in front of me, who's now a sex offender, is expressing to me that this never happened, that she made all of this up, and the prosecutor ran with it, and there was nothing they could do.
Yeah.
One of those people, his name's Bobby Doak. I don't even know if he's still alive. Last time I spoke to Bobby Doak, he had given up all hope because I had actually done his writ of certiorari to the United States Supreme Court, because the guy who was doing it was just exhausted and just had no more argument left in him. So I went ahead and did it because I was fresh with the whole case. And of course, that was denied under a blanket written order, denied without written order, like they want to do. And he was going to eat himself to death, literally.
Oh.
Last time I saw him, he had, like a serving tray that you would see when you go to a restaurant and they bring out your drinks or your food.
Yeah.
New double meat cheeseburgers, overflowing of onion rings and French fries. I was like, damn. I said, you got a burger for me? He's like, no, man, I'm going to eat all this. I'm like, what? You're going to eat all that food? He's like, yeah, I'm trying to eat myself to death, Floyd. I was like, oh.
Kill himself with gluttony.
What?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah, man,
Yeah.
I can't do this life sentence. I can't do 40 years flat to come up for parole because I have aggravated sexual assault on a minor.
Yeah. I saw a guy go to prison in Oregon, and they allowed the doggone psychologist who said that the girls had been molested to coach the girls. And even, well, in other words, you're trying to say this. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. And the thing is, I knew it was phony. This guy had been on drugs. He got saved. I ministered to him. His wife wanted him to buy, his ex-wife. He left her because she didn't want to get off drugs. He said, I'm going clean. Got himself a clean Christian woman and started dating her. She wanted him to buy drugs. He refused. They accused him of child molestation 11 years ago. 11-year-old case.
Yeah.
Had never come to trial before now. And then they're coaching him all the way through, leading the witness and everything. And Oregon has this thing that, it's like a victim's right or whatever. And I don't hardly go to Oregon. I go to Oregon and Home Depot or something like that in my car and come back. I will not pick up any female hitchhiker, and I will not be a loner. And I stay away from females and stuff in Oregon because of what I saw in that trial. And it's one of these innocent programs is trying to get him a new trial. And I said, hey, I'll testify. That was the biggest miscarriage of justice I think I've ever seen. It was absolutely surreal.
Oh, yeah. Well, we can sit here, swap war stories about all that, but we're not going to. So, all right. Let's close this up with MLK, because we definitely taken a ton of rabbit trails in this video, but it's given us
still covers injustice, just like MLK.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any closing statements or new facts that you would like to bring to light regarding the MLK assassination?
Just that kind of stuff will continue and get worse if people do not stay level-headed, do not stay open-minded, and do the work needed to discover the real truth. And we've got to get, libel and slander should apply to politics. And it would not make every politician shut up, because the Supreme Court decision still gives a person a way to tell the people if somebody else is doing wrong stuff. They said truth is an infallible defense against libel and slander. Speaking the truth cannot be silenced, but the ability to lie can be turned loose like a hungry lion. And that is what has been happening. And we've got to work to stop that. We've got to work to kill that. We've got to work to reverse that. And that takes every American carrying their load. And we've all got a portion of that load. We can benefit together, and sometimes we got to work together. Sometimes we got to pay the price together. But it's got to be done. It can't be ignored, or we're going to be in worse shape than we are already.
Okay. Well, that concludes MLK. We see this happening all the time. I don't know whether it's related or not. I don't know if you know much about who Tyler Perry is. You know
Tyler
who that
Perry
is?
sounds familiar. And
He's
there's a bunch of them being accused that are innocent now.
Well, Tyler Perry is he started off as an actor, then he became a producer, director. Now he has a studio in Atlanta, Georgia, Tyler Perry Studios. He predominantly does black film for black folks with black actors predominantly. He
Okay.
does, throw in some whites for justification, I guess. But anyway, the president of his Tyler Perry Studios just passed away in a plane crash.
Wow.
Now, Tyler Perry is alleged to, well, he does. He has a replica of the White House in his studios, and it is alleged that he has utilized this studio of the White House for filming of the Biden administration's activities. And of course, he's supported by Oprah, who's one of his mentors.
Okay.
And now you see the kind of connection. So as soon as I saw that this guy had died in a plane crash
Yep.
and the plane was purple, which is an odd color for a plane, and the plane was upside down.
One you can sure not miss. That way you get the right one.
Yeah. And we'll close with, what are your thoughts on utilization of plane crashes as an assassination tool for intelligence agencies?
Well, any plane that is computer controlled, they can hack into the computer and take it down. Uh, that's why with me, if I'm going to travel on a plane, I'm going to travel as secret as I can get, and definitely I'm going to be praying all the way that God guards the computer. And that's, and matter of fact, when I rented a computer controlled vehicle, I didn't know that it was. I rented a Camry when my 95 BMW had mechanical problems, and I'm not too sure, but what something wasn't done there because my deal to put the top up fell through like it wasn't even attached, and so it's at the mechanics now. And I found this Camry for rent, and that Camry definitely had either computer problems or they were going into the computer to control it, because it almost took me going over Donner's Pass. They got this cement median, big tall cement median between the north and southbound or east and west highways, etc. And it almost took me into that. There's a couple times it was squiggly and I thought it was hitting ice and recovering. So I stayed at Boomtown overnight and figured, well, I'll go on dry roads tomorrow. And even on the way home, coming across the flats on dry roads, it'd speed up, slow down, drift to the side. And my son told me to watch for this deal. It's like a fog control deal that keeps you on the road, and it recognizes the line and it brings you back in between the lines. And he said, basically, don't turn your blinker on, go across it, etc. And I said, and he showed me a picture of it. I said, well, the light's not on. And I went across the line and back and forth across. I said, no. He said, okay, turn it on now. See the lights on, lights on. I got close to the line and it moved me back. I said, okay, well, that seems to be working okay. But I said, I don't want it on. I turned it off and I slowed down to about 50 miles an hour. And I'm going down the road and all of a sudden a truck is coming at me with the lights on and it had kind of like high beam. And that car started heading right for that truck over into the other lane for a full frontal, like I was passing somebody, head on collision. and I had to forcefully jerk it back into my lane. And then I pulled to the side of the road, turned it off, left it off for about 20 minutes, and then turned it back on and went on home at about 50 miles an hour. And Budget Avis Car Rental was going to charge me for it anyway. And I called with my credit card company. And I said, hey, I did not have 1 minute of peace in that car. And when I got back here, I unloaded the car. And then, well, I unloaded the next day. And then I tried to get a hold of management, and I couldn't get a hold of anybody. I called the airport over there. That was where the managers usually were. And they're serving somebody else. And then I got a hold of this mall. And I said, well, I need a manager. And so then I called the next morning again. And I said, I'm trying to get hold of a manager because I've got an issue that management needs to know about. And the gal said, what's that? So I told her what happened with the car. She said, oh, well, here's a number. Call this number and a wrecker will come pick up the car. So I did not have, I had basically one trip from hell, getting home, getting my stuff here, and that was it. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, that put me through a lot of stress. My blood pressure was high when I got here, and my heart rate was high on that one. And I said, I've rented a lot of cars from Budget Car Rental, and quite frankly, I would never charge a client for what I went through. I said, I would tell them I'm sorry, and quite frankly, I'd probably give them a free rental for the future. I'd give them a free week or two in the future,
Right.
And so I'm still handling that to see what's going to happen. But for me, I do not want to be in a computer controlled plane. I don't want to be in a computer controlled car, truck, bus. No computer controls, because they can definitely do you in taking over.
Well, let's go look at that real quick as we close out. Most people will know who Paul Walker is. You may or may not know who Paul Walker is.
I've heard the name.
He's an actor. He was most famously for the Fast and Furious franchise.
Okay.
And right here, Walker died in a single vehicle collision on November 30th, 2013, as a passenger in a speeding car. His father and daughter filed several wrongful death lawsuits against Porsche, which resulted in settlements. He was in the Porsche supercar. I'm trying to think of the model name. Anyway, they're $1 million cars. And he was riding in the passenger seat, and apparently the car took off at a high rate of speed and crashed right into a tree. At the time of his death, Walker had not completed filming Furious 7 of the Fast and Furious series. It was released after rewrites and stand-ins, including his brothers Cody and Caleb, both of whom filled in for him, were used to complete the film, while the song See You Again by Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth was commissioned as a tribute. So the conspiracy theory behind Paul Walker is that he was doing his own research and investigation into a topic that somebody thought he shouldn't stick his nose in. And when he got in this Porsche, somebody else was driving. Allegedly, the same thing that occurred with you in your rental happened to Paul Walker.
And it's the same thing that occurred to the guy that was on NCIS, the actor that died, crashing into a tree, totally obliterated. And he was interested in real intelligence, and he was looking into MJ-12 stuff.
Okay. Wow. All right. I better go lock my doors.
Yep. And the thing is, and actually, when I was at in Reno and 590 Lake Street, and I don't know if I showed you a picture already. I sent you some pictures. Now I had locked doors there, bolted and locked, and they can put stuff in the air system so you don't wake up. I woke up in the morning and I took a photo. They had come in and I had needle marks on both arms. Took blood, tried to inject something, but the drugs, they know drugs and poisons won't bother me. God protects me. But they probably took some of my blood, and I would not be a bit surprised, and we'll make a matter of record of this, if I'm accused of a murder and DNA is there, that's my DNA, it's from the blood they took.
Right.
I didn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no doubt there. All right. Well, that puts another one in the can, in the books for Noel Benoist. The Martin Luther King story. And upcoming, the next video we're going to record will be the beautiful, infamous Jackie O, Jacqueline
Yeah.
Bouvier Kennedy Onassis, fondly known as Jackie O, and quite the controversial person, even today with her late son, JFK Jr., and what that looks like, and whether that plane crash was staged, arranged, or was a real plane crash. So we'll dive into that next with Noel Benoist. All right, Noel, anything you want to close with real quick?
Well, actually, and Jackie Kennedy was to John Kennedy what Melania is to Donald Trump. Jackie and John Kennedy had the Melania Trump and Donald Trump marriage, and she was an advisor to John. She was his rock, and she was the greatest first lady up until Melania. And had the thing with Kennedy not happened, she and Melania would probably be pretty much on equal level for first lady stuff.
That's quite easy to say considering the first ladies we've had since Jackie
Yeah.
O
Yeah.
up to Melania.
Yeah. Yep.
Because we've had a man as first lady, but nobody wants to acknowledge that fact that Michelle Obama is Michael Robinson.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Isn't that's something? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's
all right. Well,
and I think I sent you a copy of Obama's actual birth certificate showing he was born with a foreign national dad in Hawaii.
Yep.
Live birth.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. We'll dive into all that in
Yeah.
these upcoming videos. I keep adding more and more and more. One that I added after we completed yesterday's conversations, cloning. What do you know about cloning?
That's where they got into also cloning and combining that with their program of getting people where they would make them look like somebody and replace somebody. And they were working on cloning in the 60s.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
the offshoot
They were already starting cloning in the 60s.
right. And the I guess the twin to that would be a synthetic.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
is
they were coming up with impersonators that they could make look like a person, and where they would have, like with me, where I would learn by audio visual, where a person could basically memorize a person's entire life, say in less than a month or whatever. And they were working on that, and then they were working on the cloning so that they could take the clone and train the clone and basically brainwash the clone to be the one that they wanted, and then they could replace the person they didn't want with a clone.
Or retire that person, put them off in happily ever after land, wherever that is. Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll close with that right there. Thank you for being here. And I will conclude the show. And again, another fabulous show with Noel Benoist. I'm just so honored, humbled, proud. I just don't have enough adjectives to describe the unique position that my divine has put me in to be able to present you somebody like Noel with his vast knowledge, vast research, vast experience across multiple decades regarding world economics, world parapolitics, mainly in the United States, But as these conversations progress, we're going to get more and more topics, more and more information, and I will cover as much as this as I possibly can. As you saw from this video, Noel's blood pressure, so he's going through some health difficulties. So we're trying to document as much of his knowledge and story as we can for posterity purposes. Co-authoring a book together. Hopefully, I'll get that put together. So, all of you who are watching and pay attention to these videos, hang in there. You're gonna hear things you've never heard on any book, any TV show, film, documentary, public statements, etc., etc. So, thank you, Noel, for that. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your dedication, and thank you for wanting to come out and expose all this information to the world that you have accumulated over your lifetime. And again, I'm very humbled to be able to cooperate with you on that. So if you have not been watching the little banner that's going across here on the bottom, it's giving you updates on the upcoming shows. I've updated my website, so you can go on there as well, thefearlessfloydshow.com. If you want to email me, if you have any questions for Noel, if you have any topics that Noel has, kind of glazed over that you would like him to address on an individual show, email me, thefearlessfloydshow@yahoo.com, and I will set that up and get it in the books, and we will have a discussion about it and express to exactly what Noel knows about that particular topic or subject matter. Let me get over here and show you a couple banners because I've been working in the background as we have been talking. I do usually run holiday specials. I ran one for Halloween. I ran one for Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Cyber Week. Now I'm going to do 12 Days of Christmas. 12 Days of Christmas will begin on Christmas Day and will extend into January 5th and January 6th, Epiphany Eve and Epiphany Day. So look forward to giving you some special packages. This is the banner that you need to look for. The specials I will be putting together. So on the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me a partridge in a pear tree. So Christmas Day, there will be one item special. The next day, 2 items. The next day, 3 items. Up until the 6th of January, which will be 12 items in a special. So look for them. I will run those specials for 12 days. They will run from the 25th to the 6th of January 2025. That's your 12-day opportunity to take part in the specials for books, packages, combinations. If you want something a la carte, reach out to me. I'm very generous, amenable. I will work with you. I do layaway plans. If you don't have all the money, you're on a fixed income. Send me a little now, a little later, I'm good with that. I'm not tripping on money. It's all about education, getting this information out to you as quickly and succinctly as possible. Upcoming shows we've already addressed. Jackie O coming up, Marilyn Monroe coming up, Incame Ultra, Warren Commission report, NSA creation, Roswell, Church Committee, deep underground military bases, Bob Lazar, cloning, J. Edgar Hoover from the FBI. We're going to go deep in a bunch of different avenues, so stay tuned. Thank you again, Noel, for being here. This show, MLK, debuts next Tuesday on December 13th. Sorry, December 17th. So look forward to that. Y'all have a great week. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate you all. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. Again, if you want to reach me, the Fearless Floyd Show at yahoo.com. I am the Fearless Floyd Show across every social media platform. Mainly, I hang out over on Telegram for a reason. So come find me over there if you want to interact. I'll try to get better on other social media platforms. I'm looking to expand. I'm going to actually pay somebody to do web development because I have too many websites I need to get up to date, search engine optimization. If there's anybody out there who has experience with building internet sites, websites, and running them and has a search engine optimization experience, hit me up, email me. If you would like to call me, my phone works 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. After that time, it turns off and I don't even pick it up and look at it. So to get that phone number, go to my homepage, go to the very bottom. There's my cell phone number. Give me a jingle. If you have not nominated Dr. Ed Group to be a part of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, please go to the description below in this video or any one of my videos and click on the link and go nominate Dr. Ed Group to be a part of that team. This is the thumbnail. And of course, if you need some immune support for yourself, family member, friend, coworker, frenemy, whoever, or your cat, your dog, your pet, livestock, Fearless Floyd Pets. If you have any questions about those products, availability, shipping, contents, ingredients, anything like that, email me, fearlessfloydpets@gmail.com. I will not personally answer your question. People that are way more experienced and qualified will answer your questions, and that will be Diana and Kristen. And just email them with whatever topic you have, and they will address it for you. Very grateful for them. I'm going to do more videos with Diana and Kristen. We're going to break down and do a video for each individual product. So you'll be able to go and watch that video about, chocolate chip cookies, because they have chocolate chip cookies with mushrooms for humans. I guess you could give them to your dog as well, your cat, if your cat wants them. But we're going to break down exactly everything about those individual products. So look forward to that. Thank you for watching. I'll see you when I see you. I'm right at 2 hours. So y'all have a great week.